Hey guys, this is Homework with Miss Ray. This is our Monday night's homework on February 10th, 2020. What I need you guys to do is turn to the next clean page in your interactive notebook. You are going to turn your notebook horizontally and you are going to title it with this essay prompt. Write an essay explaining whether it is important to have support in life. Okay. In your chart, you are going to put the following story titles: The Afghanistan Soldier, The Soldier in the Armored Carrier, The Mother of the Son with Seizures, the mother of the daughter with cancer, and The Transporter. Okay. On the side, you're going to have category and theme. There is love, hate, fear, friendship, pain, loneliness, happiness, courage, perseverance. Perseverance is not giving up even when something is really, really hard, and growing up. Okay, these are some of the themes that you are going to see tomorrow in class. And so that's why I am having you write those various themes on your chart, because they're going to help you in class. Also, remember last week I told you that we were going to be looking at two sides of a coin. So there is support. There's two different types of support. You could have positive support where people encourage you to do good things in life. And then there's negative support. I may have support, but this support could be pushing me to do things that would lead me to make bad decisions, or support that's really not support at all. Maybe, someone let me down, or I don't have support at all. It doesn't even exist. Okay, so that's a negative. So we're going to read 5 different stories. We're going to categorize those stories. And then you guys are going to determine. I'm not going to do it with you. We're going to do the category and thing together. That will prepare you for tomorrow. But tonight, I want you to categorize, where do these stories go? So for those of you who did this on your own last week, remember, we're not filling up every chart. Every story is not going to apply to every piece of support. Some will go in this section for positive support. Some will not. Some don't have support at all. Some support was negative. Okay, so remember, where does each story fall under? Okay. So as you are thinking about that, you can actually fill it out on your chart because you have it already made. So pause the video to give yourself time to make this chart. And as I'm reading the story and as you're following along, think to yourself, what type of support is this? Is this positive support? Or is it negative support? Okay, let's go. The Afghanistan Soldier. In Afghanistan, I spent so much time imagining what it would be like when I came home. I built up this perfect world. I imagined eating a cheeseburger and taking the longest shower and meeting up with all my friends. Maybe we'd even take a trip to the beach just to catch up. And everything would be just like when I left. And people would be so happy to see me because they'd be thankful for the sacrifices that I made. But when my plane landed, no one was there to meet me. My mom couldn't afford to take off work. My father had died while I was gone. The rest of my family couldn't afford to travel. One of the first things I did was visit the 2 friends who had written me letters. The whole time I was in Afghanistan, I only got 4 letters from 2 friends. So I had to visit them right away to tell them that those letters meant the world to me. But after those visits, I was pretty much by myself. So I sat in my room and I started thinking. I'd been so busy in Afghanistan. There was always a job to do, but now it was quiet. So I thought about all the things that I'd kept at bay. I thought about the little girl that I saved and what her life is like now. And I wondered if she's still alive. And if she's still alive, does she even want to be? So take a minute to think about this story. Is this an example of positive support, or is this an example of negative support? If it's an example of positive support, just put a check mark there. If it's an example of negative support, just put a check mark there. Okay, remember, we're not going to put this story in both, so you have to make a decision. Okay. The soldier in the armored carrier. I was inside an armored carrier with my platoon commander. He tried to open a pressurized fuel container, and it sprayed across the vehicle and hit a camping stove that he was using to make hot chocolate. It burst into flames. He dropped the fuel canister and fire covered the floor. Then he caught on fire. He grabbed onto the exit hatch and wouldn't let go. I couldn't pull him away, and he wouldn't let go. And the vehicle is filling up with flames. It was so hot. It's like when your hand is on the stove, except you can't pull it away because it's your whole body. And it's so bright, and I can hear him screaming, and the hood around my neck is shrinking and tightening. And my Gore-Tex uniform is melting and spreading and falling off my body. And I could feel myself burning, and I couldn't take it anymore. I gave up. I didn't want to burn to death. I decided to take a deep breath to singe my lungs and close my throat. Then the hatch opened. Someone heard us screaming and opened the hatch. I kept having these nightmares of being trapped in a burning vehicle. They were nonstop. I'd wake up screaming and I couldn't breathe. I wasn't sleeping at all. I was overworked and going through a horrible divorce. At the time, I was working as a medic on a SWAT team, and one night at work, I had really bad flashbacks. We were about to serve a warrant. All of us were in the back of a truck, and it was completely dark because we were preserving our night vision. And somebody turned on a red flashlight to adjust their equipment. And I'm seeing our shadows on the wall. And suddenly, I think we're in a helicopter. And I'm trying to fight it, but it seems so real. I'm telling myself, keep it together. Keep it together. I know it's not real, but I'm actually smelling the fuel and hearing the sounds of the turbine. And then the back door opened. And the next thing I know, I'm standing on the third floor of this building with no idea how I got there. And that was the last raid I ever did. We had a training session later that week. Afterwards, I closed myself in a van, put down my rifle, and started to cry. I was stressed to the hilt. The next day, I started looking for help. Okay, so think about this story. Is this story an example of positive support? Think about both soldiers. Is this an example of positive support, or is it an example of negative support? Put a check mark if it's positive. Put a check mark if you think it's negative. Remember, you can only choose one. The mother of the son with seizures. I grew up around nature. I had a wonderful family and a great life, and it was so easy to be a believer. Then over the course of a single weekend, I learned that my 1-year-old son was blind, had a seizure disorder, and a brain tumor. I remember I went to the beach and a storm was coming in, and I just sat on the edge of the ocean and I wailed. For an hour, I screamed in the pouring rain. That was 13 years ago, and there hasn't been a moment of relaxation since then. We've researched everything. We've tried everything. Anything to keep the tumor from growing. And the longer we've gone on, the more we've tried. The narrower, the choices get. There is nothing I won't do to save my child. There is not a doctor you can keep me from. I'll drive across the country for a single conversation. But I live with such pain. It's not rocket science. Every day could be the day that I lose my child. But I'm not trying to look up. I'm trying to have gratitude. And I'm trying to keep my faith. So think about your choices of positive and negative support. Put a check mark if this is an example of positive support. Put a check mark if this is an example of negative support. And remember, you can only choose one. The mother of the daughter with cancer. What did I do? It was certainly nothing she did. She's just a child. It feels like we're being punished for something I did, but I'm nice to people. I've never cheated on my husband. I'm nice to my parents. I feel so guilty. She was stage 4 when they discovered it. I should have known sooner. I should have listened to her complaints more. I should have said, maybe it's not a pulled muscle. Let's go to the doctor right this moment. Only 80 kids per year get this cancer. When she first got diagnosed, it hurt me to look at her friends. They had their long hair and they were driving their cars and going to prom and having boyfriends. They're great kids, but I couldn't look at them without wondering why? Why do they get to have a future? There's a 23% survival rate. I try not to fixate on that number because I get so sad. I don't want to go there. So I live as an actress. I'm playing the role of a happy person, but all I feel like is lying in bed and crying. The mom inside that hospital room helps her plan for her future. The mom inside that room believes when she tells me that she's not going anywhere. But the mom out here doesn't know what to believe. So, think about this story. Put a check mark if this story represents positive support. Put a check mark if this story represents negative support. You can only choose one. And remember, guys, wherever you put your check mark, you have your reasons for why you put it there. There's no wrong answer. It's all based on your perception and how you understand the story and how you interpret it. Now remember, wherever you put your check mark, you will have to back it up. You will need to be able to explain why you chose to put a check mark where you placed it at. Last story, the transporter. I was alone with 4 kids. My mother was sick. I was making $500 a week working at a restaurant in Harlem. This Colombian woman told me she could help. She said, "We need honest people like you." I really needed the money. They gave me a job as a transporter. I drove cocaine from Manhattan to Massachusetts. They gave me some extra to sell at the restaurant. I only had a few clients. I did it for 2 years. I never did any drugs myself. Then I was set up in a sting by the same woman who got me started. I knew I'd done wrong, but I'd never been in trouble before. I thought I would do a little time in jail. The detectives told me, "You're a leader. You're this. You're that." The lawyer told me to sign these papers. I didn't understand what to do. They told me I didn't have a chance at trial. They told me they were helping me. I was given 25 years. So think about this story. Is this an example of positive support? Or is this an example of negative support? Remember, you cannot choose both. You have to make a decision. Okay. So let's look back at our chart and let's look at the categories. Remember, by now you should already have your box filled in with whether it's going to be negative or positive. But let's categorize these stories together. So, the Afghanistan soldier. Remember, that was the story about the soldier who was in Afghanistan and he couldn't wait to get home. Excuse me. He couldn't wait to get home, and he gets home, and there's really no one there to greet him. he sees his friends who didn't really write him a lot of letters, but because of the letters they did send, he really wanted to meet with them, but it really didn't continue a relationship, and he was by himself, and it caused him to reflect on life, and more specifically the life of the little girl that he saved, and whether she actually was happy to be alive. And I'm considering that he's reflecting the same thing. Should I even have returned back home? What do you think this story represents? Does it represent fear? Does it represent pain, loneliness? There's multiple options that you can choose. For me, I would say that this story represents pain because he's hurting that no one was there for him. He's hurting that he doesn't have the relationships that he used to have. Life is different. I'm going to say that this story represents loneliness. Okay. Just because of how he feels, especially at the end of the story. The soldier in the armored car. This story is about the guy who almost died trying to save his platoon captain, I think it was, from burning to death. But I believe he almost gave up on him at the risk of losing his own life. So this story definitely has to deal with fear. This story has to deal with courage because he did try. And this story also has to deal with pain. Okay. The mother of the son with seizures. This mother found out that her son, and I can't remember how old the son was, but she found out at an early age that her son was going to be blind, have seizures, and she went out to the ocean and she just cried. And I'm not sure if this is her only child or not, but she just cried because the journey that she was about to embark on was going to be difficult. Life for her son was going to be difficult. If your son is blind and he struggles with seizures and he has a tumor, more than likely he's not going to get married. More than likely he's not going to have children. Or go to college, or, be a part of a fraternity, or, all the things that parents look forward to, the first time their child drives a car and gets their driver's license, their first kiss, all these different things that, children experience. She's not going to get to have those conversations with her son. So there is a fear there. There's pain. There's perseverance because she says she's not going to give up. She's going to continue to try to find out. She's going to continue to try to find a way to help her son. So there's perseverance, not giving up when something's difficult. And then there's also love. Because of the love that she has for her son, she doesn't want to give up. Okay. If you wanted to add any more to these stories, you can. This is just what I am thinking. Okay. So the mother of the daughter with cancer. The mother of the daughter with cancer. So this mother is reflecting on herself. Like, is it like bad karma? Did I do something that caused my daughter to suffer this pain? And she's thinking about, again, all of the experiences that her daughter's never going to get to have. She even thinks about hair. Hair is something that's really important to girls. And so, when you have cancer, a lot of times you lose hair. So she's thinking about, her daughter loses her hair. Her daughter's not going to drive. Her daughter's not going to go to prom. So there's a fear I think the mother has because she wonders if it's something that she did, and she wonders if her daughter's going to die and she's not going to live long. She brought up that 23% rate that people with that type of cancer don't live. So there's a fear, there's a pain there. There's also a love because she, of course, loves her daughter. If you think of any more that should be there, you can add it there. But I think fear, pain, and love really cover those. Okay, so this last one, the transporter, about the poor mother who is looking for help, and she, she has a lot of things going on. Decides to sell drugs in order to support her family, and of course, it doesn't go well. So, initially, how the story begins, there's a fear and a pain that she can't support her family. She's worried about how she's going to, take care of her kids. Her mother's sick. The fear, I'm going to say fear is combined with worry. Okay. The pain of actually having to go through a process where the person who helped you was the one who turned you into the police. There's a pain there. There's a betrayal. There's a betrayal there of being, backstabbed. That's not a word, backstabbed, but being betrayed. And then fear also because she doesn't understand the judicial system. So her lawyers are telling her there's no chance. She doesn't know what to do. She's signing papers that's basically saying, they probably just made her say she's guilty, and they probably really didn't try to fight her case. And so she ended up with 25 years in prison. And so, she's not going to get to see her kids grow up. The relationship that they had is going to be very different. If her mother was already sick, her mother probably passed away while she was in prison. And so she wasn't there with her mother. And so there's all these different things that arise. So tomorrow, what I want to see, you should have the categories that we did together. Because we are going to be doing categories in class tomorrow. You'll be reading stories in groups where you're going to categorize the stories. And I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. So make sure you have a check mark. What did you choose here? Remember, I should not see check marks everywhere. Per story, positive or negative. Which one did you choose? Positive, negative, which one should you choose? One check per story. Okay? All right, you guys, have a good night.